President Trump is getting praise in this. Starmer's left London to try and get praise to be associated with this. So is Netanyahu in the shadows with this one? Is he in real danger politically after all of this, or can he take any credit for this?
Well, he can try and take some credit, but obviously there were questions ever since the beginning of the war about Netanyahu's response to that, how prepared the IDF was for that attack on the 7th of October. His government has lived under a shadow throughout. There have been constant questions, coalition tensions. So now that his sort of raison d'etre of his wartime government has been partially removed, there will be lots of questions in the Knesset about how long this can continue, what a sort of exit game looks like. And again, all those unanswered questions about 7th of October and why Israel allowed itself to be so taken by surprise and these hostages taken in the first place. So one of the sort of medium-term questions as a result of today's news is going to be about Netanyahu's future in Israeli politics.
I mean, he's put himself front and centre of this hostage return. We're just seeing pictures online of a handwritten note that each of these hostages is going to receive from Benjamin Netanyahu and his wife today. This is going to be in packs that they have provided in the hospitals for these 20 men who are going to be released today. The note reads, "On behalf of the entire people of Israel, welcome back. We've been waiting for you and we embrace you." The kit is going to include clothing, a laptop, a mobile phone and a tablet. And I was also reading this morning, Robert, that it includes a teddy bear, because you can only imagine the trauma that these men have been through for the past 2 years.
It is a problem for Netanyahu because he's issued, if I can put it like that, a major inquiry into October the 7th. And of course it is the moderate left-wing liberal press, mainstream like Haaretz, that are saying, actually you've got a lot to answer for, the way you handled Hamas when you were going after Fatah in the West Bank. So there's a lot of baggage. But the other thing, I was reading some of the stuff that's come through, again, the Telegraph, very comprehensive coverage today, saying that Netanyahu was saying last night, the war isn't over, and we're getting ready for this. Now, I don't know how the IDF, and I think that's one of the really worrying things, the IDF, which is a citizen army, has been politicised in part by that. One of the warnings is, and I was counting it, there are at least 3, possibly 4, chiefs of staff now in politics against Netanyahu and the settler right wing, including one of the recent and most distinguished ones, Eisenkot. But, you know, Ehud Barak, Benny Gantz, and they're going to go after him. And it looks to me as if the right is going to split now, and maybe even Likud itself will divide. This is way down the road, but there has to be an election. Unless you declare an absolute emergency, which would mean martial law, there has to be an election well before this time next year.
And Netanyahu has had this coalition with the right, which has often been people who want to full-on clear out Hamas, fight to the last, and now we've had
annex West Bank, chunks of it. Yeah,
precisely. What does this mean? It splits his potential coalition, and obviously some people will now want to sort of sue for a resolution. Others will want to keep on fighting to finish the job, as that's been very much Netanyahu's rhetoric throughout this whole conflict.
The Reuters is reporting in the past few moments that those first 7 hostages have been handed over to the Red Cross in Gaza. They said it will not provide footage of released hostages or detainees during the operations out of respect for the dignity of those released and the condition they may be in, as well as issues linked to their safety. But they are reporting that they have now been handed over. That's a huge relief to those hundreds of people.
Well, it means the process has started. Yeah.
But Robert, what we talk about, you know, as if it's a simple thing. We've got the hostages, we'll hand them over, war over. What condition would these people be in? What way would they have been held? Would they have been tortured? What's your thinking of what's going on?
Well, physical or otherwise, yes, they would have been tortured because they'd been detained, they'd been deprived, they didn't know whether they were going to live or die. They knew that colleagues,
this is for 2 years.
And for 2 years. And frankly, we have advanced so much in understanding this. We have to be much more careful. Think of the condition of the Japanese prisoners of war on the death railway. They were in a terrible state. A great friend of our family used to dream almost every night for the rest of his life from that. And, you know, coming back from the Falklands, thinking of Maggie Thatcher, where I reported for the BBC, that was the year, 1982, that PTSD became a public coin, a public expression. People began to understand it. We've got to think through from that. They need a lot of care, because with most of them, this will be with them for life.
We have to, James and Robert, I'm interested in both your thoughts on this. Today would have been Margaret Thatcher's 100th birthday. A lot of the newspapers commemorating her today and thinking about her and situations like this. How would she have been involved? What sort of leader would she have been in today's world? Would she have been relevant or not? What are your thoughts, James?
Well, I think that there are a lot of people on the right now, and even across the spectrum, looking for someone with that clarity of purpose and an agenda to drive through government. I think there's lots of comparisons between Britain in the 2020s and the 1970s, and I think that they miss a leader who, with absolute clarity and intellectual strength, which people respected even if they didn't agree with it, is missing from current politics today. So I think there are lessons from Margaret Thatcher, even if the challenges of Britain require perhaps different solutions slightly to those in the 1970s.
Yeah. The difference I see, Robert, here is I see Thatcher, historically, rightly or wrongly, but I see her as a leader and I see Starmer as a follower. I look at Egypt and the situation. He scuttles out there as one of a number of people out there. She would have struck me as someone who would have led the way in being there.
She would have taken counsel. I was just thinking, they're both lawyers, but both very different politicians, as you absolutely said.
Was she a lawyer? I thought she was a scientist.
She's a scientist and a lawyer.
Really?
She read for the bar too, yeah, absolutely.
Gosh.
Tavile, what I was going to say that struck me, you saying that, she could make relationships. She really could make relationships. She made relationship with Gorbachev, but she made a very powerful relationship with Shimon Peres. And this was where she was terribly good instinctively. She was a far more practical politician, in my experience of her, than people realized. I mean, I was very privileged. I got a full debrief about the advice she was getting about the Falklands after the event from Lord Terry Lewin. Delightful man, not remembered. The chief of the defence staff at the time just said that she was brilliant in the way she took advice, sought advice from the military. And 6 years after leaving office, she went through the whole thing with me at a memorable lunch for 3 or 4 hours. But she was, again, very empathetic because she brought everybody into the conversation, including my wife. Said, what do you do when he was stuck up there, either on a ship getting shot at or in the middle of a funny place called Goose Green? And she was genuinely inquiring about it, which I was fascinated by.
If you are just joining us this morning, Israel says that the first hostages have been released as part of the Gaza peace deal. They say that 7 hostages have been handed over to the Red Cross. They are all men. The announcement was made with huge cheers in Hostage Square. We can see the scenes on our screen now. Hundreds of people gathered there overnight. Television screens have been put up in the square for people to hopefully capture a glimpse of the hostages, but Israel and the Red Cross have so far said that there won't be any footage of the hostages being released. Hamas agreed to this as part of this, that there would be no displays, no handover ceremony, that instead, out of respect for the dignity of those being released and the condition they may be in, there will be no footage
There's
of them.
a 2-hour time difference, though, and they are working to Greenwich Mean Time, so they're working to our time. And the idea is that the hostage handover should be, or as part of the conditions, be completed by 10 a.m. our time. So that's 3.5 hours away from now. So a lot to go through on that thing.